ago, the New York Times reported that the criminal investigation of the Trump Organization's CFO, Alan Weisselberg, is reaching its final stages. It raises the possibility that he could face charges this summer, according to people with knowledge of the matter. Those sources also told the Times that the prosecutors have obtained Mr. Weisselberg's personal tax returns, providing the fullest picture yet of his finances. Now, we've known for months now that Manhattan District Attorney Cyrus Vance is putting tremendous pressure on Weisselberg with the hope of ultimately flipping him against his boss, and that would be Donald Trump. Joining me now is Neil Katyal, former acting solicitor general, and Glenn Kirshner, former federal prosecutor. Thank you both for being here. Glenn, I am going to start with you. And so this is apparently focused on whether or not Mr. Weisselberg failed to pay taxes on valuable benefits that Trump provided him and his family over the years, per the Times story, including apartments and leased cars, as well as tens of thousands of dollars in private school tuition for at least one of his grandchildren. So the idea is just it's sort of a tax case. Why should Trump care about that? If Mr. Weisselberg was getting the gifts, getting the benefits, and not paying his taxes, what does that have to do with Donald Trump?
Trump should care about it, Joy, because it will add additional leverage to hopefully develop Weisselberg as a cooperating witness against Trump. I'll tell you, when I read this reporting, though, the other thing it indicates to me is that Alan Weisselberg is resisting becoming a cooperating witness, because if he was already in the prosecutorial fold, everything would have gone radio silent regarding Alan Weisselberg. But there's also a long game to be played here. I've had defendants who were not exactly like Weisselberg, but they were people that I desperately needed to bring on board to build my case against the bigger criminal fish, and they wouldn't plead guilty. Alan Weisselberg may not plead guilty. So here's how we play the long game as prosecutors. We indict him, we try him, we convict him, and we sit down with him again after a jury has said guilty, but before a judge has sentenced him. And we say, what are you going to do now, Chief? You still have an opportunity. We can still reduce your sentence somewhat, but guess what? You're not going to get as good a deal as if you had come on board and cooperated up front when you should have. So there are still a lot of moving pieces to the Alan Weisselberg part of this equation.
Yeah, I mean, there's the mob boss allegory has been made with Donald Trump a lot, right? That he sort of operates in the same way. And the question then becomes, would Alan Weisselberg, who people might know him from having been on The Apprentice, like he was very close to him, he was the father's money man too, would he be willing to do time for Donald Trump? Let me play you what Michael Cohen had to say about this when he was on this program about whether or not he thought Weisselberg might flip. Take a listen.
I think Donald Trump is going to flip on all of them. What do you think about that, including his children? What's going to happen when all of a sudden they turn around and they start asking him about his tax returns or about the devaluation of the assets or the way that he took deductions? I don't do my taxes. It's my accountant. So he's going to turn on his accountant and point the finger. He's going to say, Don Jr. handled that. Ivanka handled that. Melania, don't take me, take Melania. He's going to tell them to take everyone except for himself.
You see my surprise there. I mean, Neil, the question then becomes, if Donald Trump then eventually becomes the focus of attention, it sort of brings us back to a DOJ question. There's so many things that Donald Trump seems to have gotten away with. And I think people have gotten used to him getting away with things. But if there's a purely financial crime, a tax crime, can he ultimately expect to walk away from it just because his money man decides that he's willing to go to prison for him?
No, I don't think so. And Joy, we'll have to study this new reporting by the New York Times, but to me, it looks like the first domino for Donald Trump is starting to fall. And this has been an inexorable path since the Supreme Court 9-0 said Trump's tax returns have to be turned over. So these financial records that you're seeking about Trump are now in the hands of prosecutors. We know that those New York prosecutors have convened a grand jury. They're going to sit for 6 months, 3 days a week. That's far longer than Donald Trump's ever worked, so he's got to be worried about that. We know the prosecutors have sent a warning letter to the Trump Organization saying this is a criminal investigation. And so now we know this other thing, and Glenn's absolutely right. This is how prosecutors bring cases, and particularly against a reluctant witness like Alan Weisselberg. You sit and you take your time and you say, look, if you don't cooperate, here's what's going to happen. And it can happen before indictment, the cooperation, or after a guilty conviction, as Glenn is saying. That's exactly how they operate. And I think prosecutors here know one other thing, which is that Alan Weisselberg knows where all the keys to the kingdom are. He knows everything. So most normal companies have a compliance office that deals with all these questions, not the Trump Organization. The Trump Organization's compliance office was basically like a giant Sharpie drawing of the presidential seal or something like that. So it's really all up to Weisselberg. And so if they can flip Weisselberg, and I suspect they can because of that dynamic that Michael Cohen was just revealing, this kind of prisoner's dilemma in which if Weisselberg doesn't cooperate, he's got to worry that Trump may turn on him. Each of them is going to have to worry about that. And that becomes a race to get information. And that's why I think ultimately bad news for Trump.
And there's no one to pardon him because Trump's not in office. Let's play just for those of you who never watched The Apprentice. I never watched it either, but here it is. Here's Alan Weisselberg on The Apprentice.
Replacing George this week is my chief financial officer, Alan Weisselberg. And you think George is tough? Wait till you see Alan.
Alan? I felt that Andy losing his lines of communication was a very serious matter. If this was a military maneuver and he lost his line of communication, he could lose an entire battalion.
And this is the question then, Glenn. If you have somebody that's that close, he's putting him on TV. That's probably the only way that he paid him, since he apparently doesn't like to pay people. Let NBC pay him. You've got his daughter, Weisselberg's daughter, under a lot of pressure. You got the family under pressure. You're squeezing all of these people around Donald Trump. Is it possible that Cyrus Vance could be doing that and not be interested in Donald Trump?
Very unlikely. I agree with Neil that the Alan Weisselberg domino will fall. The only question is, does it fall while he still has an opportunity to cut a fairly favorable plea agreement with the prosecutors and perhaps keep his two sons out of the criminal mix because they were both involved in Trump's business orbit, right? So if he wants to save himself now, then his domino will fall much more slowly. But if the prosecutors have to go hard, go after him, go after his sons, go after his daughter-in-law, and anybody else in Weisselberg's orbit who may have committed criminal offenses, boy, he is going to fall like a ton of bricks.
It is amazing to watch how slowly this is happening versus how quickly Matt Gaetz's bestie threw him under the bus. It's interesting just to watch it all happen. Neil Katyal, Glenn Kirshner, thanks for scrambling.